and welcome to the weekly newscast by First Ukraine. My name is Victoria Zabiyan and we are ready to present you the news for outgoing week. Nadia Savchenko announced the dry hunger strike. She does not eat near 80 days and now she refuses even to drink water. She does not want to take medicines and says that every usage to force toward her will be accepted as tortures. In case of her death, she demands to pass her body to her mother. Ukrainian made such a decision after the refusal of Donetsk court on Rostov-on-Don region in Russia to go forward with final speech and postponed the sitting of court on 9th of March. Savchenko stated that she evaluated refusal in final speech as violation of her rights. It is to be recalled that prosecutors asked for 23 years for sentence for Nadia Savchenko and 100 rubles of amercement. Defenders claim that independently from sentence, political decision about release of Ukrainian will be made in nearest few months. Nadia Savchenko is accused in murder of 2 Russian journalists and also murderous assault of separatist group and illegal crossing of Russian border. Nadia Savchenko denies all accusations.
We have already shown how Russia can be dishonored by the example of one person. You did not take me down, you will never take me down. So let's finish it as soon as possible. I will not wait. Neither you gave me a life, nor you are the owners of my destiny, and not you will decide my fate. If there is more than 2 weeks, I will not wait for a verdict.
It should be understood that the dry hunger strike is 5, no more than 7 days of life. So now we need to concentrate primarily on the state of her life and safety of her health.
USA demand to release Nadia Savchenko immediately and without any discussions. Such a statement was announced by Speaker of State Department of US John Kerry. He underlined that Washington is deeply concerned with decision of detained Ukrainian pilot to begin dry strike.
She's been detained for no good reason, and we want to see her released and sent home where she belongs. And that, again, I can't confirm the hunger strike. We've certainly seen the press reports that certainly doesn't make this any easier, and certainly would. We want her released immediately, regardless. But obviously, if she is in fact launching a hunger strike, then certainly now her health would be an added issue to increase the urgency on that. But she needs to be released.
Our guest in the studio, Igor Kogut. Thank you for a visit.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Nadia Savchenko begins dry hunger strike, and it is a try to press investigation on your point of view.
To some extent, I think not, because it's a very serious step, it's a very dangerous step, and I think it's only another kind of voice to justice, to have a proper investigation and proper decision of a court. Nobody in the world, as we see, that all world is in solidarity with Nadia and Ukraine. Nobody believes that she is a killer, and she just defender of Ukraine's sovereignty and integrity of Ukraine.
I ask you about Nadia Savchenko because this event and her case, it's a kind of also international issue already.
Sure. Everywhere in the world, on the States and the European Union, we see a very strong support to Nadia among politicians, among the civil society, and all Ukrainian politicians and Ukrainian civil society are supportive. She is a member of Ukrainian Parliament. She is a member of the delegation of Ukraine to Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, and she is a symbol of Ukrainian sovereignty and Ukrainian integrity as a state.
And in case if destiny of Nadia Savchenko will be set, what can be the actions of international community toward Russia?
We're talking about some kind of a pressure on the Russian government. It's a necessity to exchange Nadia to some Russia soldiers who were taken by Ukrainian army, and to find solution how to bring her back home to Ukraine.
And it's obvious that the Russian court decided to postpone the sitting just to verify the words of Nadia, or for something else.
It's a strategy of the Russia courts to continue this case and not to deliberate here. It is a strategy to keep her in Russia, to make her as a symbol of a Ukrainian, let's say, aggression behavior, but it's not true, and we should understand, and everywhere, from in many countries of the world, with his only solidarity, understanding that she is not guilty.
The case of Nadia Savchenko was also discussed in European Parliament in Brussels, and officials in European Parliament provide political and economic sanctions against Russia because of violation of international law and Soviet justice concerning Nadia Savchenko. It is said in appeal of political group in European Parliament Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe. Case of Nadia Savchenko was one of the hot topics for European community this week within one more important event. And this event is Ukrainian Week in European Parliament. This week, representatives of Ukraine and EU discussed how to improve Ukrainian parliamentarism. 40 Ukrainian MPs had come to Brussels together with head of European Parliament Volodymyr Groysman. They had broad plan of reforms which will help to make Verkhovna Rada more modern and to make communication with government and society better. Also, they discussed how to increase standards of MPs' behavior.
Speaker of the Parliament Volodymyr Groysman suggests that Russian aggression is not the reason to postpone reforms. In particular, during the opening ceremony of Ukrainian Week in Brussels, he said that this is exactly what Moscow wants. Ukrainian representatives have come to Belgium to talk about changes in Verkhovna Rada.
Many shortcomings lie on the surface. That concerns attendance as well as ethic, discipline and the quality of legislation. I think you will agree with this. To restart the apparatus and convert it to Equality Service Center, to restart the apparatus of committees and deputies. Restarting committees by deputive bills is also an issue that needs to be resolved.
To allow MPs to accept a decision by fewer votes, suggested Pat Cox. He presented the report of the European Monitoring Mission, which studied the methods of work of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. According to Cox, monthly timetable of the Parliament, Verkhovna Rada's supervision over the executive branch of government and the structure of parliamentary committees should be improved.
Key to the transformation of democracy, society, economy and the justice system in Ukraine is the building of strong and independent institutions.
Europe needs a stable Ukraine, said European Parliament President Martin Schulz. Therefore, Brussels will continue further cooperation with Kyiv based on the principle of solidarity.
2,500 bills on the agenda of Parliament, including 200 by members of Parliament, is good but a lot. 225 votes plus one, that is rather for the Constitution. But for the adoption of less global laws, the quorum would be advisable to reduce.
There should not be any concessions in matters regarding the territorial integrity of Ukraine, said the Commissioner for EU Enlargement, Johannes Hahn. He mentioned that deteriorating of the situation in Donbass, and yet focused on visa-free regime issues and the introduction of electronic declarations. At the same time, the European Parliament officially divided visa liberation issue for Ukraine and Georgia. Speaker Volodymyr Groysman said that this decision will not affect the timing of EU-Ukraine visa-free regime. According to him, this will happen already in 2016.
So, as we know, you visited Ukrainian Week in European Parliament and you own the unique information about this event. So, please name top 3 questions that were discussed there, because maybe we didn't mention something in our video material.
Yes, there are much more than 3 issues, because a report assessment of the assessment mission led by former President of the European Parliament, Pat Cox, includes 7 priorities and 52 points, 52 goals which should be achieved in the nearest years, causes future for institutional capacity building, development, Parliament as a democratic assembly, introducing the main functions legislative, improving the legislative process, oversight function, control over executive and public funds, and representative function. For me, as a director of the USAID RADA program, it is quite interesting to be part of the among those interviews which made by Pat Cox and team during last half year. And we are partly responsible for implementation of this ambitious plan, roadmap, as we call it. Among the issues which is most necessary is an improvement of the procedure, parliamentary procedure, incorporated a more policy approach than just normative and legal expertise. To have a more connection, more cooperation among Verkhovna Rada and the Cabinet of Ministers and Administration President in favor to make draft of law more clear and more common for all these institutions.
The main issues was quite practical, I
yes,
understand.
And we're talking about some other areas of, for example, information strategy of a parliament as a democratic institution, as an institution who's staying for democracy, human rights, rule of law, and it should be very strong, very clear system of communication with the society from point of view of these values of democracy, human rights, and rule of law. Also, we are talking about the reshaping of an approach of analysis, of preparation of the drafts, of a deliberation of legislation. It's about the establishment of a real parliamentary library with research services. We were talking and mentioning a lot on parliamentary ethics. It's not only behavior, but the declaring of assets and conflict of interests and lobbyism and many other very important things were discussed during these 3 days. We have a quite comprehensive document. We have some kind of ambitions. We have a political will, which was stressed, showed by Speaker Groisman as well as the leader of political faction in Parliament. We have a willingness and of a apparatus, Secretary of Rada, to implement those roadmap, and we are ready to assist them.
So Ukrainian delegation is satisfied with this visit to Brussels because you talked about more events for our officials. How can they, it was very informative for them, first of all, but there are some points that are important for Ukrainian people,
Sure.
which were discussed. So can you...
Yes, first of all, I'd like to mention that it was not only around the 50 Ukrainian peace taking part in the event. It was probably the same number of Ukrainian NGOs and experts also were present on a Ukrainian week, and it was quite inclusive discussions on different panels related with this action plan and this ambitious plan of reform of Ukrainian parliament. And in this case, we were talking about the so-called Open Parliament initiative. We were talking about the e-Parliament introduction with special tools, electronic tools, which offer rights, not a possibility to Ukrainian citizens, Ukrainian voters, to comment draft law. For example, some things, some technological resources already developed. We have a quite well-developed petition system to Parliament, which was supported by a RADA program. We have established European Information Research Center, and I had a chance to meet colleagues from European Parliament and clarify that we do precisely the same work to Ukrainian parliamentarians as they do for European parliamentarians, providing information and policy analysis for them. Of course, the main difference is the resources. Research service of the European Parliament, 300 people, most of them are PhDs, well paid, with a budget around 8 million.
So we
euro.
have a lack of resources, resources for
implementation of this action plan, this roadmap, of course, will need additional resources as a budgetary, as Ukrainian public budget, but also some international resources. And we, as a USAID program, are ready to provide some kind of a methodological training support to RADA. One of the, probably it's one of the serious problem and challenge was discussed is human resources management in Verkhovna Rada. Attestation of the people who work in the training center establishment there. So we have a full package of assignments, goals. Fortunately, we have some resources and some knowledges we can share.
I see. One more important topic, maybe not so positive, it's a free visa regime for Ukraine. Ukrainians were waiting for the decision of European officials for a long time concerning this question, and it seems that European officials are disappointed with actions of Ukraine, its internal policy somehow, and they divided the question of free visa regime with Georgia. So what does it mean for Ukrainians?
That European institutions, European Commission and European Parliament still waiting for implementation special action plan for visa liberalization, which includes mostly legislation related with fighting of corruption. Until Ukraine not implementing all this package, not adopting all this legislation, not establishing all necessary institutions, because we have a too long process of establishment of Anti-Corruption Bureau and other institutions which is necessary. Same as a problem of the General Prosecutor Office reform, judicial reform. Is many questions still be waiting to be adopted, solving or establishing.
But they said that Ukraine can be the member of European Union and NATO only in 20 years, 25 years.
It doesn't matter. What is very important standards. And in case of Ukrainian Parliament, this ambitious plan of reform of Parliament is one of the steps towards a real institution, real democratic functioning institution.
So on the way of for this desire, we will have some quality changes.
Yes, we are in cases, for example, parliamentary ethics. We were talking, we have a separate event, joint USAID RADA program with ODIHR OSCE on the parliamentary ethics. And we agreed that now it's a final goal, but it's not necessity to have a code of conduct immediately.
The process is more important.
We're talking about the discussion and to finding some agreement on basic standards of parliamentarians, because to be parliamentarians, it's also a profession. Same as a doctor, same as a constructor, some other professions. They should have some kind of a rule of conduct, have not only related with the behavior, because it's most visible case, but also with the conduction of the duties, voting, be present of a committee sitting, be present on a plenary sitting, and be active, proactive in these things.
I see. We have one more fresh event to discuss, and Ukraine hasn't agreed to hold elections in Donbass. At the 3rd of March, foreign ministers met in normal format in Paris. Ministers of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Mr. Pavlo Klimkin, said that it was a hard meeting, but for Ukraine, we haven't any conclusions. French Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault expects that the elections will be held before the end of the first half of 2016. In his turn, Frank-Walter Steinmeier was unsatisfied with the lack of progress in the negotiations, but Sergei Lavrov said that the willingness to hold elections in Donbass is part of the French and German counterparts, but Ukraine breaks this process. Ministers also encourage all parts of the conflict on the east of Ukraine to release and exchange all prisoners and persons kept unlawfully. This procedure must be completed by April 30.
Unfortunately, the Russian side was not ready to discuss some issues in detail. We, of course, had a special emphasis on humanitarian issues, especially on exchange of hostages. We can't reach any breakthrough.
And declaring of anti-mine activity and full prohibition of trainings with usage of all kinds of weapons, three-side contact groups signed 2 documents about normalization of situation in Donbass at the dividing line during its meeting on Wednesday. It was reported by Special Representative of OSCE, Martin Saidik. Armed forces and military groups of the both sides must provide the marks and to create the maps of districts which should be demined till the 21st of March. Well, I guess in case of normal format, the statement that non-result is also result, it's not our situation.
It's just clarification of the position of different parts of this format. And we understand that Russia is pushing others to keep elections on the occupied territory. France and Germany saw these elections as some kind of a resolution, but everybody should understand that to have elections, to run elections, some preconditions are very, very necessary. For example, is a peace, is a stop fighting, stop killing people there, and stop shooting. To have some kind of a control over this territory by some sovereign power, to have admission, to have a permission to Ukrainian political parties take part in elections, as well as observers, international and domestic, to observe, as well as for media to cover electoral process. Until we are not able to provide these conditions, we are not able to talk about the electoral process. So.
Yes, it's a quite. I have one more quite philosophical question. Is it possible, in theory, to find some consensus with the Russian Federation, and how can it be done?
I'm not believe in consensus with Russia Federation, but I believe that very strong pressure, including sanctions, political pressure on Russia, will, in some perspective, shift Russia position. And we still stay in a position that until we will not have a control on this territory, on a state border, we will not be able to have a secure election there. We understand that the people, most population of this region, will be are not very friendly toward the Ukrainian state and Ukrainian political parties, but to foresee, to have the democratic expression of these people, it's very necessary to have a calm, peaceful situation there.
I see. Thank you very much for informative and fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
Our guest in the studio was Igor Koh, Director, USAID Rada Program, and he has brought the latest news for our viewers from Brussels. On 3rd of March, Ukrainian journalist Maria Varfolomeeva was released from captivity of terrorists in the east of Ukraine. At the bridge not far from Shastia in Donetsk region, the girl was exchanged for 2 people, civilian Olga Litovchenko and military man, citizen of Russian Federation Ivan Gorbunov. For release of Ukrainian journalists, he was pardoned by Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. Earlier, Russian court sentenced Gorbunov to 11 years of imprisonment for crimes against territorial integrity of Ukraine. Varfolomeeva passed 14 weeks in solitary cell. Terrorists of so-called Luhansk People Republic accused her in spying for Ukrainian army and connections with right sector and aid organizations. Also, she was accused in adjustment of artillery fire, for what she could get 15 years of imprisonment in unrecognized LPR. According to words of journalists, she was arrested when she was making photos of resident houses on Luhansk Street for one of Kharkiv issues. Situation remains stressful in the ATO zone. During the week, shell fires do not stop on any directions. Donetsk, Lugansk and Mariupol once. There are killed and wounded people.
Zaytsevo settlement, one of wastelands near Horlivka. Practically all citizens left this place because of shell fires. Houses are damaged with mortar shell fires and chopped up with bullets. One more danger is mines, covered death. Only those who have no place to run stay here.
We get used. I'm a doctor. Mainly old people stay here. I cannot leave them. They have no place to live. They are lonely.
The front checkpoint. We are shell-fired with mortars, artillery and tanks. Often shells hit civil houses. We can answer only with firing from rifles and automatic grenade launcher. On the south of Ukraine, soldiers have taken Shirokine settlement under the control. It is in 20 kilometers from Mariupol. During the battles, the settlement was passed from one side to other several times. Majority of houses are destroyed. Only broken toys remind of about pre-war past of the seaside settlement. When Shirokine went under the control of Ukrainian army, locals came back to see their houses. Russian soldiers went away from here, and I came to see what happens here. I hope that this nightmare will be over one day. These houses cannot be renewed. It is needed to knock them down and to build new ones. But when war will be over, hard-working Ukrainians will renew everything.
USA prolonged sanctions against Russia for a year. President Barack Obama signed the appropriate declaration. It was stated that White House that Russia threatens peace, security and territorial integrity of Ukraine. Besides, it tries to undermine its democratic institutions. As a reaction to annexation of Crimea, EU and USA provided political sanctions against Russia in spring 2014 and in summer 2014 economic ones because of the aggression of the east of Ukraine. Officials in Washington promised that restrictions will be cancelled only if Russia executes all Minsk agreements and returns Crimea to Ukraine. Super Tuesday within primaries took place in USA this week. On 1st of March, 16 parallel elections happened in US, 13 of them in different states within the country and 3 abroad. More details about primaries in the United States watching the following story by our partners, Voice of America.
On the biggest night of the 2016 presidential campaign, Republican Donald Trump claimed victory after winning the most states and delegates in regions as different as the South and New England. In the process, he took a giant step toward becoming the party's presidential nominee.
I'm a unifier. I know people are going to find that a little bit hard to believe, but believe me, I am a unifier. Once we get all of this finished, I'm going to go after one person. That's Hillary Clinton.
Senator Ted Cruz won his home state of Texas and neighboring Oklahoma and urged his rivals to step aside so he can take on Trump alone.
And after tonight, we have seen that our campaign is the only campaign that has beaten, that can beat, and that will beat Donald Trump.
Senator Marco Rubio broke through with his first win in Minnesota, but mostly lagged behind.
We are going to send the message that the party of Lincoln and Reagan and the presidency of the United States will never be held by a con artist.
Despite Trump's success, Republican congressional leaders want Trump to more forcefully reject bigotry after supportive comments from a former Ku Klux Klan leader, House Speaker Paul Ryan.
If a person wants to be the nominee of the Republican Party, there can be no evasion and no games. They must reject any group or cause that is built on bigotry.
In the Democratic race, it was a big night for Hillary Clinton, with sweeping victories in several southern states, putting her in a commanding lead for the nomination. Clinton is already shifting some of her focus to the Republicans.
The stakes in this election have never been higher, and the rhetoric we're hearing on the other side has never been lower. Trying to divide America between us and them is wrong, and we're not going to let it work.
Rival Bernie Sanders won his home state of Vermont, along with Oklahoma, Colorado, and Minnesota. He vowed to press on.
We are going to take our fight for economic justice, for social justice, for environmental sanity, for a world of peace to every one of those states.
Still to come, major tests for both parties in some big states in the next 2 weeks. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
Dismantling of camp for migrants in French city of Calais, strengthening of wall between Hungary and Romania, and first accident with manless Google vehicle. These and other news of the world, watch in the following story.
Monday afternoon, it's set to resume.
Dismantling the refugee camp in the French city of Calais turned into a fight. In the evening, police began to demolish the tents. Migrants started to throw stones at the police officers. They responded with tear gas. 3 protesters were arrested. During the demolition, 3 houses turned on fire. The police say refugees by themselves set fire or people who support illegal immigrants. By now, dismantling is suspended. The camp in Calais, known as the Jungle, there have been living up to 4,000 migrants. The government wants to relocate them in refugee centers or the town of shipping containers nearby. But immigrants refuse to leave Calais. They wait to get to the United Kingdom through the tunnel under the English Channel. Switzerland will not receive further grounds for deportation of foreign criminals, so were the results of the referendum. To expand the list, we're offering right radicals, but 59% of citizens have disagreed. Opponents were comparing the law project to Nazi standards. In Switzerland, 2 million foreigners reside. To get a citizenship in this country, it is a very expensive and lengthy procedure. The wall on the border between Hungary and Romania will become even stronger. It was said by the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. In addition, the amount of patrols will be increased. Such measure has to stop illegal immigrants. Only last year to Hungary came 400,000 of displaced people. The first construction on the border with Romania appeared last summer.
Hungary is waiting for a strong defense of its borders. Our police, military and counterterrorism agency should solve the problem. If necessary, we will protect ourselves at all borders, from Slovenia to Ukraine. We will teach Brussels, illegal carriers and migrants that Hungary is an independent state, and to enter its territory can be only legally. But if not, the police will do well to adhere to the law.
The first road accident with the Google unmanned vehicle in the US. In California, during the test check, the car crashed into a public bus. No one was injured. The cause of the accident was the onboard computer error. The program decided that the bus will let a pass to the car. The company Google admitted responsibility for the incident and promised to prevent such errors by changing the auto software.
Astronauts Scott Kelly, Mikhailo Kornienko and Sergei Volkov returned to Earth after a year-long mission to see whether travel to Mars is possible. Scott Kelly boarded the rocket at the 27th of March, accompanied by Russian Mikhail Kornienko. Both men were sent to the International Space Station for a year so that scientists could study the impact of such long duration in space on their bodies. A capsule lands in Kazakhstan's desert. On the sixth try, Leonardo DiCaprio has his Oscar. The most statuettes was gathered by movie Mad Max. Ukrainian documentary film Winter on Fire conquered to the movie about singer Amy Winehouse. There were a lot of jokes on the ceremony about blacks, because this year Oscar comes only to white people, so the ceremony wasn't boring.
And the Oscar goes to Leonardo DiCaprio.
Like that, the most devoted fans of actor were rejoiced of his favorite win. Leonardo DiCaprio is getting nominated for the World's Major Film Awards for 6 times. In 1994 for the role in film What's Eating Gilbert Grape, 20 years after for The Aviator, then for Blood Diamond and for The Wolf of Wall Street in 2 nominations like the Best Actor and the Best Producer of the film. This long way internet users depicted in comics. Critics say that DiCaprio deserved an award for the role of Hugh Glass, at least because of the difficulties that he had to go through. Movie was filmed not in the pavilion, and the snow, wind and icy river were true. Leonardo has repeatedly rescued from frostbite. Shooting of The Revenant, it is a story about relations between man and nature, said Leonardo in his speech. As an addict, DiCaprio has devoted his speech to global warming.
Making The Revenant was about man's relationship to the natural world, a world that we collectively felt in 2015 as the hottest year in recorded history. Our production needed to move to the southern tip of this planet just to be able to find snow. Climate change is real. It is happening right now.
The Revenant claimed of 12 awards in total, but received 3, even for the best camera work and directing work. For Alejandro Iñárritu, it is the 4th Oscar in his career and the 2nd on the reel. But the best film, quite unexpectedly called Shot of Real Events Spotlight. This story is a journalistic investigation of sexual crimes committed by Catholic Church. A remake of the movie of 1979, Mad Max, has collected 6 gold statues. Brie Larson had got the prize of Best Actress for the movie Room, but the Best Documentary Film became Emmy. Movie about the British singer spared Ukrainian Winter on Fire about the events on the Maidan. Experts from Cinema World estimated that Victory and Oscar increased box office of the movies for several $1 million and increased actors' salary for $4 million and actresses' salary for $500,000. However, commentators write that the World Academy gives such joy that can be measured by money.
SOS Children Villages in Ukraine. Children who have lost parental care and in need for long-term care may find a comfortable home in SOS family. In this family, they receive love, protection, and a place where their needs are met. Olena Tsarenko visited SOS family.
SOS short-term foster family of Luba Yashuk has been operating in SOS program since 2012. This family is ready to immediately accept children when their lives and health are in danger and when they need urgent help. Luba's family is one of the few unique families. Every child is a new experience and it's not repeated. Every child is unique with its history of nature. I had 6 babies and all of them are now in loving families. I want to grow and enroll in college to become a hairdresser. 13 family-type children's homes are established in Kiev SOS Children's Village, which are home for 85 children. The psychologist tells children who come here have experienced physical and psychological violence. These children were either ignored by their parents or subject to violence, physical, psychological, sexual. This is a very serious injury that sought grain in children's negative subconscious and accompany the child throughout life. Family Straightening Program is aimed to support families at risk and help them overcome the crisis. social workers, psychologists, social pedagogues, and external professionals together with the family try to identify the needs, provide appropriate services, and create conditions so that children and their parents to be able to hear each other, strive to understand, support, and promote development.
We put the child's interest in the center, so we do everything in the best interest of the children, and we put our focus on the child's development. And for this we ensure the complex support for the child's development, meaning complex psychological, pedagogical, social and other types of support. And we try to engage as much as possible children to the finding solutions to their challenges that they face in their lives.
Under the Kyiv SOS Children's Village Family Straightening Program is implemented in Kyiv and Kyiv region over 10 years. About 6,000 children and 2,000 families are supported in Brovary and in Starobilsk. The purpose of Family Straightening Program is to enable children who are at risk of losing parental care to grow in a supportive family environment.
On the 1st of March, premiere of narrative Crimean stories by young Crimean Tatar director Nariman Aliyev took place in Kyiv. Our journalist knows why this movie brought the audience on their feet and gathered a lot of feedbacks from movie critics at this year's Berlinale.
Ukrainian cinema is reviving. Crimean Tatar shoot a short movie about history of his family. There were only 4 brothers at the set. The result of their work presented Ukraine at the Berlinale this year, and on the 1st of March Ukraine has seen the film.
The world premiere at the Berlinale, a film Without You, for the first time was shown in Ukraine. To congratulate the young artist came many colleagues and those who are close to Crimean topic. I really believe that young directors can say in a totally different way about our usual things. It is very important that Nariman has so realistic language. He sets out his idea very artistically, and I like it a lot. The more these movies, music and books that tell us about the Crimean Tatars and Ukraine, showing and opening it from different angles, not only from the positive side and maybe even with a sting. It is very necessary for us in order to grow, to call ourselves in our own right as European people. The movie was filmed last summer on the territory of already occupied Crimea. The plot is the journey of 2 brothers on birthday of their elder brother.
The idea of the movie Without You is dedication to my brother, Rafat Sulimov, who died 6 years ago. I have the whole family helping to release this project, so I think it came out very sincere and intimate cinema. I encourage young directors to make efforts to shoot, do not afraid to make mistakes and practice. This is the main recipe for success.
It was a simple story of brotherly love, loss and memory, but no one was left untouched. The premiere screening of Crimean History Saga brought together 3 short films the director shot for 3 years, so the viewers were able to follow the development of the young director and to find out how ethnic people today live at the peninsula.
After watching, you came out from the cinema so filled and walk away carefully, not to spill.
The director said that the premiere is only the beginning of his journey to the big cinema. Nariman Aliyev is also engaged in social activities. He helps young filmmakers to promote their work. In particular, he prepares for a competition of beginner film directors entitled as Ukraine, the Path to Peace.
It was a weekly newscast by First Ukrainian News of Outgoing Week. Victoria Zabian was working for you in the studio. Stay with First Ukraine. Goodbye.